Welcome to another episode of Team Anywhere, where CEOs, leaders, and experts at building teams,
companies,
organizations,
and amazing cultures share how to lead from anywhere in the world. I'm your co-host on the East Coast, Ginny Bianco Mathis.
And I'm your co-host on the West Coast, Mitch Simon. And we invite you to join us to Team Anywhere. Today, our guest is Sharon Koifman, author of Surviving Remote Work. As the founder of DistantJob, a company that finds global remote talent, he has over a decade of experience finding, hiring, and creating great cultures through unique ways of building connectivity and trust. We've all seen the statistics that show that remote work provides greater productivity. Our guest agrees that productivity is great, but what Sharon provides in the podcast is how to build greater employee longevity. Hello and welcome to another episode of Team Anywhere. I'm your co-host, Mitch Simon, on the West Coast. It's a pretty gray day, but I'm on the West Coast. And then there's my co-host, the amazing Dr. Ginny Bianco Mathis.
And it's nice here.
And it's nice.
Believe it or not.
On the East Coast. And we are so excited to have Sharon Koifman on our show from Montreal, Canada. Wow. And Sharon, you're going to tell us all about you. I know you're a writer. You've started a company called DistantJob. You have a podcast. We'll get into that in detail. How are you today, Sharon?
I am doing fantastic. And the good news is that for once in Montreal, the weather is also great.
Oh my God.
It's beautifully sunny outside. I'm looking forward after this interview to run outside.
Yeah, it does not. So I also, for the listeners, I was born in Montreal, and as soon as I was born, my parents said, "We're out of here." So, so I live in Southern California, and we love it here. So let's make this fast. Okay, so Sharon, tell us your story.
We are a recruitment agency that specialize in distributed people across the world, right? So this is a big differentiator. Outsource company, they take on projects. They take on they have an allocated office where they hire people and they want to keep them busy. We start from fresh. Every time you have a job description, we take care of you, and we go to the world to headhunt this individual. Now, when you go to the world, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. And those people are people that will work remotely.
Yes.
Because the companies you're working for are remote organizations.
Yes.
And you ensure that those people then have the appropriate mindset, talent, skills. I am working remotely because I like it, and that's how you get the best of me.
Unsure is a big word. We're not unsure. We're in the people's business. There's always a chance that the person is not good. We find amazing people. We're like a local recruitment agency. You have a job description, we'll find you people. It's up to the client to interview them. It's up to the client to do what they do. It's just remote. You just like we are, see each other's face, turn on the Zoom and interview the person exactly like you would interview a local individual.
Great. And do you have a special relationship with the people that you're finding, or are you you're finding people who are coming to you as would a company who is finding its own people that would work on site?
That's exactly it. We do not have relationship based on the client mandate. We create a relationship, becoming the HR manager for those companies, assuming they choose to add this value. But in the beginning, we solicit them like any other recruitment agency. We just have the capacity to do it on a more bigger scale, in a more distributed scale across the world.
That's great. So I guess my next question, I feel like such a beginner at this. And obviously, Sharon, you've been doing this for a long time. I guess, 10 years ago, the traditional business would, I don't need you because everyone who I'm going to hire, they're going to be in my office. And now, Sharon, is if I have figured this out, I'm going to probably maybe hire all my people who never come to my office, or I might hire some of my people who never come to my office. And how am I going to go find those people? I would have to find a guy like Sharon to help me do that. Okay,
Absolutely. Look, the recruitment industry has existed for a long time. So even when you're in a local environment, you sometimes need to hire a recruitment agency. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. What we changed the game, we're saying we don't need to hire it locally. We will find you exceptional talent across the world. This is the big change. This is the big change that we created 12 years ago when we said, hey, why are you just hiring local people? The world is big. You have a much bigger pool of talent to choose from, which means it indirectly it gives you the ability to find better people and find them faster and at an incredible value.
An incredible value. I think that's the word today. Incredible. The two words today is incredible value. Okay, so Sharon, you've been doing this for quite a while. Obviously, the world's turned a little bit a year ago. Mm-hmm. Sounds like you were already ahead of the curve. But is there anything that surprised you over the last year?
So this is actually a challenge when I wrote my book also about remote management. Suddenly, I needed to hit challenges that are not just remote related, that COVID related. So to give you an example, one of the biggest advice that I give is that you need, for mental health sake, as a remote employee, you need to book your social activities at the same level that you book your business meetings. Right? It becomes a top priority to take care, because when you're working remotely, you suddenly you get stuck at home and you suddenly forget that you have a social life. When you went to the office, you had your buddies going for lunch, for a happy hour, for a squash game. I have a friend that would go with his colleagues running it during lunchtime. There was an experience, and you move home and you suddenly forget about that experience. And my answer to you is, what prevents you from emailing the same people and go for lunch, go for happy hour, go for that run? It's the same thing, although you have a lot more time as a remote employee. But suddenly COVID came, and it's like, yeah, but I can't go for lunch because the restaurants are closed, right? So I needed to give advice. Okay, open your balcony, try to do something, get creative with COVID. But COVID has created a new layer of challenge, how to stay sane in this remote environment, which I have answers for everything, but it is a new layer of complication.
That's great. I'm sure during the winter, going out on your balcony in Montreal was probably not a good idea.
Well, I bought an outdoor fireplace. I bought I made an outside heaven in my balcony. So the answer is yes. Yes, you can.
All right. Yes, you can. All right.
Sharon, have you found, because of the pandemic, different kind of companies now coming to you because they now have decided they have to go more virtual and hybrid?
I have the big boys. I have the big companies come to me, and this this was not even like, they didn't even take me. They couldn't even
think of
this idea, right? Of what you want us? We have an office in every location, and we don't need our remote.
No, we don't need you, Sharon.
Oh wow!
And it's fabulous. Like, I'm talking to really big companies these days. It's like, okay, show me what you got.
It's sort of like, gee, I hate to say it, but the pandemic worked in your favor.
Yeah. It has. I don't want to celebrate.
No, not at all.
Right.
The need emerged.
Yeah. Yes. The need has emerged. People finally understand the incredible value of remote place.
Great. You know what? Can you give us, before I want to ask you about your new book, which is Surviving Remote Work, but before we get to that, you've kind of raised it, the big boys. I'd love for you to kind of share with us, you don't have to share any names, but how are one of these big boys, or big girls, right? How are one of these big boys working with you as they're dipping their toe in the water, because their history is everyone comes to my office or several of my offices around the world. How do you work with them so they can help figure out how to do this?
So the interesting thing is that I'm in general a small to medium-sized solution.
Mm-hmm.
The enterprise only recently we started having those discussions, but the few enterprise clients that we have, it's usually a specific department within the company that
Okay.
approaches me. So it's
Okay.
not the CEO. Bill Gates never talks to me, or Bill Gates talk to people. I haven't come close
Bill
to
is
my
busy
understanding.
right now,
Right.
Sharon, if you read the news. Yes.
Yes, that's it. But a manager of a department comes as a, oh my God, I need people. Right. So certain big companies grow a lot, especially in the technology. Some shrink, some grow, and some of the companies that really grew in COVID is like, oh my God, we need people. Okay, I get it. Remote is not so evil. Let's give it a shot.
Right.
And it's usually those individuals, those head engineer or the mini CTO, not the big CTO, but the technology manager of that department said, okay, what do we need to do? I will get an approval from my HR management. Go ahead, start. And our process is we learn about the company, the job description, the culture, the value, and we go and we tackle it. So it's never yet, I've never yet to talk to the head guy of a massive enterprise, but we slowly kind of map up one department at a time.
Wow. This is great. Again, it's just when, Ginny, just when you and I thought we knew everything, here comes along a place where you can find people who are remote,
Definitely.
to
Definitely. Yeah. It's
Sharon,
making me
it's
think of a whole lot of
right.
different situations here. Yeah.
Like Sharon, there's a guy out there called Sharon who solve my problems
Exactly.
and just get me people from wherever they are. I mean,
Amen.
amen.
And Sharon, I would think that maybe, especially the big boys,
The big boy and
may
big girls
want,
too.
and
Big
girls,
Okay.
I should know better,
Yeah.
may start to say, well, we need to have this in house. So that just might also open the doors for training, cadres all over.
The big boys and big girls are gals is the appropriate term from what I understand.
This is a gal. Okay,
right?
gal. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Feel much
So
better. You're in HR.
Yes, I have two little girls. My focus is for them to kick some butt in the future. I want to give them the biggest advantage possible. So
Please.
so the big boys and the big gals usually build their own departments internally. It's never specifically my target market. Target market for me are the medium-sized companies. Those are the people who don't have an office and operation in every single country.
Oh, all right, got it. Right.
And this is really my big wins.
Yeah,
love it. Okay, I want to know. Okay, tell us about your book. So you launched a book. I saw it on Amazon. And what's I don't know if you've seen it, Jenny, but it's basically a cartoon version of Sharon. I think he's wearing flip flops or something. So if anyone hasn't seen Sharon, I used to have red hair and a red beard. Sharon still, thank God, is young and has a red hair and red beard. So it's a picture of Sharon, a cartoon version of Sharon, and the book is called Surviving Remote Work. Why is this book so important?
Why is this book so important? Look, this is not just a discussion of COVID. This is a discussion that remote has brought so much more productivity to companies. Remote has created happier and more independent people. And this is not me. This is an MIT Sloan research has shown, right, that there is happier and more independent people. And there's tons of if you go into Coco, you will see that people are producing 77% more on all their jobs, and people are realizing that this is a necessity. And once you get to that point that you understand that this is a necessity, right? we need to figure out how to do this right. Surviving Remote Work is that book for both the managers and the workers. Usually, I believe that the company is only as good as their management, but I talk a lot about companies that are not getting it right. And if you're a worker, you can potentially become the next manager. This is not just an opportunity to be an effective remote worker, it's an opportunity to be the next superstar in the company and to be potentially the next manager. This is what I'm providing in Surviving Remote Work. Of course, it's all about building trust, creating an amazing culture, creating more productive people, making it fun, and making your company exciting that more people want to work for. There is and do this while maintaining a house with kids and lots of good stuff.
Great. And I wanted to, I love that statistic. You mentioned Coco. It's Coco-cloud. They said that remote workers are 77% more productive and 23% are willing to work more hours. It even said that workers would actually be willing to, I can't remember if it was 23%. It was around 23% who would actually prefer a lower wage in order that they can actually work from home, which is really cool. So let me ask you, in your book, you just mentioned how you really keep your company culture alive remotely, and I really want to know what you say in your book on how to keep that culture alive when everyone is not there.
So first of all, company culture is a funny thing. People like to throw that idea around a lot. I have a great culture. But when it comes to really defining what it is, people are having a real challenge. I mean, if you go on Wikipedia and Vestopia or anywhere, the definitions are so long and so complicated. I don't remember them by heart, but it's a mouthful. And
yes.
When people think about culture, they always think about this Google culture where people sit on bean bags, having happy hour, playing ping pong, and apparently are super productive, and you don't know how. I thought that in order to create a good culture, you need to start with a better definition, with a clearer definition. And I did that. I spent a year analyzing, researching, how do I define culture in order to accomplish it? Because once you understand a practical definition, you don't need to do things just for the sake of doing. You don't need to have the biggest party in the world to have a wonderful culture. So my definition of company culture is about creating connection. Connection between you and the company, connection between people, colleagues across the company, which create a better teamwork, and connection between the client and the employee and the client. Once you understand that word, you're already goal-oriented to see what you're trying to achieve. You're no longer focusing on creating the biggest party in the world. You are focusing on creating connection. So for a long time, I remember I tried to create Zoom parties, right? And it just, everybody comes, bring your drink, bring coffee, bring beer. And it was a lot of fun for 4 or 5 times. And we still do it once or twice a year. But after the 5th time, it just got old so quickly. And my VP at the time was like, enough. This is not working anymore.
Right.
And instead, what I realized that intimate one-on-ones were so much more powerful. Mm-hmm. So we implemented a app called Donuts on our Slack. We use Slack as our chatting solution, and Donuts randomly connects people.
Yeah, and you did donuts?
I do donuts. We're obsessed with donuts.
Right. No, implemented donuts. Yeah, because I think we talked about donut on one of our early.
One of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So donut has been a huge success. I still personally hang out with my managers one-on-one, having drinks. It's this intimate level is so important. So the drinks on Zoom is not so bad. The Zoom party is, at least for me, ineffective. Maybe somebody else does manage to create connection with it. I'm not against that. But the idea is that your thought process when you create culture is not about how do I make the biggest party, the most fun company. It's how do I create connection.
I love that. I think
I do
I
too.
think we're separated at birth. That's just kind of it. All of us, all three of
Stop
us,
it.
separated
Oh,
at birth. Yes. No, it's true.
Another
Great.
ginger, talking. I guess
Ginger from
it's part of
Montreal.
the magic.
It is. Can you give us some idea of I love we both love the idea about creating connection. How does a leader keep a team united in a remote setting, in a remote situation? What does he or she now do under these new circumstances?
So, there's unlimited advice. One of the strongest advice that I have discovered was all about building trust. Now, trust is another one of those cliche words that
Mm-hmm.
everybody likes to use, and I try to deconstruct cliche terms. So
Okay.
it's not just for culture; it's for other things. But for trust, actually, is not a question whether I can trust my employees to do a certain things. Of course, I should trust because I interviewed them and I hired them, and they went through a process that generated potentially that trust. The trust that I am talking about is whether my employees can trust me. It is this is the big one. Could my employees come to me and tell me that they don't understand something without a penalty? Could my employees come to me and call me an idiot because I did something really with me taking
Mm-hmm.
this is constructive. I mean I
Right.
am an idiot. You're right. Could my employees trust me to say anything that is on their minds without any consequences? This is my motto. This is I live on building that trust. And if there's any manager in my company that is ruining that trust, that it eliminates that consistency, because anytime that one of my managers or me, but I really became, if there's anything strong about me is I don't lose temper. I lose it after. I go run, right? I don't lose my temper because I know that every time that I do, it will cost me 3 months of trust building time.
You did explain that so well in terms of one, your meaning of culture, and then two, you even define trust, and then it's a course through you role modeling that your folks are going to get a sense of that and move in that same direction. Do you also come right out and say, hey, here's how I define culture? What do you all think? Can we all buy into that? Here's how I define trust. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is I find some people actually need it spelled out.
So here's the interesting thing. Here's what happened to culture for me, because culture is a huge focus in my management process. And in the beginning, again, through a lot of experimenting and I use my company as almost a research lab in management.
That's great.
And so in the beginning, I spelled it out. I literally say we're a nerdy company. We're fans of Star Wars and Star Trek and gamings, and we are and we dress this way, and that I would, and we are all about trust, and we are asshole free environment, and I would spell them out. And what I've discovered is that I'm not in control. If I give my employees the ability, if I build that trust within my company that they can say anything, they can take their own initiative, they can be independent, suddenly I lost control over the culture. It's no longer mine. It ends up being, I try to spell it to other people, to clients and everything. Here's what happened. Here's the conclusion of this entire process. But there's people in the company that took charge of it. That all I can do is just let them know that, hey, you got my support. And every time we bring a new employee, You guys are part of the interview process to make sure that this person is a fit within your culture.
That's right.
Don't
That's right.
contradict my values. I have specific values. I'm still an asshole-free environment, mistake-friendly environment, building trust environment. Otherwise, you prefer Star Wars over Star Trek, which I think is a complete sin, by the way. Right? I don't understand. How does anybody think that Star Wars is better than Star Trek? But I'm just probably going to alienate 50% of
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
Right, but apparently my company became a Star Wars kind of company, right? And I'm not in control, and it is what it is. And I wear now for 4th of whatever that date it is that there's a Star Wars Day that just happened like 2 weeks ago. I wear a daddy Darth Vader.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, may the
But Sharon, what you've explained is the journey of making that happen. At first, you did speak about it a lot. Then you planted the seed and the culture grew around it, and they are the force now.
Yeah.
So new people come in, they get interviewed by your folks, and they feel it.
Yeah. Look, there's something very powerful, and it worked for me. I don't know if it works for everybody else. My brother runs a company 4 times the size of mine, and he thinks that I'm in La La Land, right? So I don't know if it works for everybody, but for me, treating my employees as an entire 3-dimensional being has been incredibly, incredibly successful for me. It really worked, and it gave me, and the big difference between my type of company and those other successful companies that are more micromanage and more that more it's very boss-centric environment, we know that they succeed. We see them all the time, but they work twice as hard. That's the only thing that I can see. I'm not saying that I have the formula to build a bigger company than the micromanagers, because some of those micromanagers really, really succeed. But I run a happier company and a company that demands less of me.
More fun.
Yes. And fun is great, but fun is not happiness, right? It goes much, much deeper than that, right? It is people fulfilled and happier, and that's a huge deal. So
now, is there Sharon, before we end this amazing conversation, are there any questions we should have asked you to really support our listeners on how to really succeed with a remote company?
And one of the big differences is the discussion of mental health. This is when you sending people home, right? They might be more productive. They might be more independent. They're potentially happier if infrastructure allowed it, because the research shows that majority of people are happier, but it also opens up to some serious mental health issues. And now the manager needs to become a little bit of a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not asking for managers to get degrees in therapy or to become real professional therapists. What I'm asking for managers is to get more intimate with the employees.
Yeah.
To spend more time in meetings talking about how was your weekend. Hang out, and like I said, with the culture, hang out, have drinks, have chit-chat, talk about normal things. Because when you get to learn about their kids and the pets and the wife, you get to see if they're getting burned out. You get to see if they're really suffering at home, if they're getting lonely. You get to see you have to proactively get intimate with your employees to see if they're not just productive in the short term, are they going to be productive in the long term? So it's not just about productivity, it's also about longevity.
Excellent.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great. Now, where can all of our listeners find you, Sharon?
So you'll find me in many places. First of all, you can find me on Amazon buying my book, Surviving Remote Work. You can find me at my recruitment agency, DistantJob. It's Sharon at DistantJob.com. any question. I'm an open book. I'm always happy to help people with their names. You can find me or more my team at thinkremote.com. This is our media company where we all talk about everything remote management and remote work and the remote industry and everything all about it. And soon you're gonna talk to me in our what we're building right now, an HR management company and payroll and everything. So we've got so good in HR that we're creating an independent service and an independent software, but we're not there yet. It's going to take several months for that.
Okay,
So
great.
All the places you can find.
Exciting.
So great. So buy his book, Surviving Remote Work. Find him at DistantJob.com. And for even more on remote work, go to thinkremote.com. Sharon, this has been fantastic. I think you need to go outside because you are in Montreal. It's probably the only great day of the year.
The only great day.
Yes. Pleasure. And so to all of our listeners, do check out all of Sharon's resources. And if you've liked this episode or all of our episodes, please share them with your friends and colleagues. And we're going to sign out, Jenny, on the East Coast and myself on the West Coast. And we'll see you on the next episode of Team Anywhere.